And at this time, we have a presentation, if I can get the switch back over now. We have with us Mr. Fred Pavandi, Mr. Eric Johnson from the Road Commission, and welcome you gentlemen tonight. Let me get this switched around.
Good evening, everybody.
Okay, we handed out to the board members the presentation here, but it's also on the screen, so. Thank you, Mr. Pavandi, for joining us this evening. And,
welcome.
our residents, I know you've been getting phone calls on potholes. This is the pothole
Yeah.
season.
Yes.
And I know you have a presentation, and we want to
We
answer
have a
maybe some
short
questions.
presentation.
Sure.
Yeah. Thank you for inviting us to this meeting here. My name is Fred Pavandi, Managing Director for Genesee County Road Commission. I have here with me the Director of Engineering, Eric Johnston. I'm going to be providing you with some basic information about the Road Commission, roads and bridges, and then Eric will go through the actual projects that's going to be going on this summer. So with that, let's go to the next slide, please. Information about the Genesee County. We have 17 townships. The entire county has 16 cities, villages, and then Road Commission has 1,200 miles of paved county roads, and we have about 400 miles of unpaved county roads. Those are gravel or limestone roads. We maintain 120 bridges. Bridges are the structures that have a span of 20 feet or more. Those are defined as bridges. So you could have a culvert, but if the culvert is 20 feet wide or more, that's also considered a bridge, okay? And then we have 250 traffic signals that we maintain. Actually, we maintain over 400 traffic signals throughout the county because we are the maintaining agency for MDOT and all cities and villages in Genesee County except for City of Clinton. But we actually own 250 traffic signals that is totally under Road Commission's jurisdiction. And then we have about 580 large culverts, and those are defined as 48 inches or larger, okay?
Mr. Pavandi, does the 1,200 miles include subdivision streets?
Yes.
Okay.
Next. So here's, we have three classifications of roadways in Genesee County. Those are 470 miles of primary roads. Those are 100% funded by the Road Commission and are eligible to receive federal or state funds. Now, if you look at our county map, I'm talking about Genesee County map, not any map, just Genesee County map. All the red lines that you see on that map, those are primary roads. Any green lines that you see on our county map, those are local roads, local section line roads. And any black lines that you see on that map, those are all residential roads. But residential roads are also considered local roads, okay? So then we have 610 miles of local roads, which requires local township matching funds, okay? And I think Eric's gonna talk about allocations a little bit later. And then we have 520 miles of subdivision roads that are also considered local roads, but they are typically funded by special assessment district, which means the resident has to file a petition and try to get at least 51% signature and then submit it to the Road Commission and the township, and they schedule a couple of hearings, I believe, public hearings, and then once those hearings are approved by the residents, then it becomes a project, it comes to us for improvement. But typically, 100% of construction is funded by the residents. The Road Commission can only pick up up to 25% of engineering and inspection. Okay? So that's how the special assessment district are set up.
Mr. Pavandi, could you give an example of a primary road here in Blanc Township?
Bristol Road, Hill Road, Baldwin Road,
How about
any roads of high volume of traffic.
how about a local road?
Local Road, Reed Road, Jennings Road, part of Lennon Road, Gibson Road.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Those are section line roads, but are
And we
low
all know
volume
subdivision
roads.
roads, so,
Yeah.
okay.
Next,
one.
please, yeah. So here's the health of the county roads that are in Grand Blanc Township, okay? So we have 37 miles, these are centerline miles, because some of these primary roads, you gotta remember, some of these primary roads are multi-lane roads. So when I say 37 miles, it's gonna be a lot more than, when you use lane miles, it can be much more than 37 miles. These are 37 miles, centerline miles of township primary roads. And the condition of those, you got 14.7 that are in good condition as of 2021. 73.3% are in fair condition, 12% are in poor condition. So how do we rate that? We rate that based on our PASER rating. We have a certified engineer that goes out there every year and rates all of our primary roads. PASER stands for Pavement Evaluation Surface Rating, is that right? Pavement, PASER, that's what it's called. And it's scored from 1 to 10, 1 being the worst, 10 being the best. 10 means like new reconstruction, brand new roadway. So 7, 8, or 8, 9, 10 are good. 5, 6, 7 are fair. 1 to 4 is poor, which is fail, basically a failing condition. For township local, we have total of 14 miles. These are the roads that we have in Grand Blanc Township. 14 miles. 60.2% are in good condition, 11.4% in fair condition, and 28.4% are in poor condition. Those are local roads, status in Grand Blanc Township. And then we go to subdivision roads, as you can see, good condition, we only have 5.5%. Fair condition, we have 51.3%. And then poor condition, we have 43.2%, which is basically a failing grade. I mean, 43.2% means the grade of below 50%. Right. Next, please. Now, going to unpaved roads in Grand Blanc Township, there is no primary road that are unpaved in Grand Blanc Township. In fact, we only have 1.5 miles of unpaved roads that are primary in the entire Genesee County that belongs to Road Commission, okay? And then we have 5.2 miles of unpaved local roads, 4.3 miles of unpaved subdivision roads. And based on our 2020 rating that we did, now the rating for gravel roads is a little different than paved roads. Gravel roads are rated based on inventory-based rating, IBR, which looks at drainage, roadway width, and the condition of the structural adequacy of the roadway. So when we did that in 2020, we ended up at 21.1% that are in poor condition, 26.9% fair condition, and then 52% are in good condition. That's the gravel roads. Next. Going into county bridges and large culverts in Grand Blanc Township again, we have total of 7 bridges in Grand Blanc Township, 1 that is poor, 2 that is fair, 4 that is good. It's rated basically the same as roadway. Any 7, 8, 9 that are good, 5 to 7 is fair, anything below 4 is poor. Now, out of that 7, I believe there's only 1 that are on local road system. So on that, I believe it's in good condition, but if you have to do anything with that bridge that are on a local road system, we have to ask the township for a matching fund up to 50%.
Where's the poor bridge?
Poor Bridge is Center Road is one.
Center Road.
Yes, Center Road is one. That's primary. In fact, that's programmed for 2025.
We are in center.
Probably center near,
Near the center city limits.
that must be right by,
Just north of city limits. That's that bridge that's poor condition is posted.
I'm glad it's on a primary road.
And then we have 51 large culverts in Grand Blanc Township, 9 are poor, 14 are fair, and 28 are in good condition. Next, please. Okay, here's the bar charts that's showing the primary road centerline miles in Grand Blanc Township only. Again, the red bars that you see there, those are poor roads. The blue is fair, and the green is good condition. And what you want to see on these charts is that the red, you want to see the red go down. When the red goes down, that means your system is improving. You follow? Which, that's what we're seeing here, basically. If you compare from 2013 to 2020, you can see a drastic improvement going from poor of 15 miles down to like 6 miles now. Okay? And our fair road, the trend is going up, which is good, and obviously we want the good roads to go up also. But then again, having the good roads is kind of expensive sometimes. Okay? So that's the condition of our primary roads in Grand Blanc Township. Next, please. Here's the condition of our local roads. These are not subdivision roads, though, but local roads, like Reed Road, Lennon Road, Gibson Road. So you can see the red is way down, which means I think we're doing a good job of improving some of our section line local roads. And our fare is also going, it's supposed to go up, but it's going down, but then again, you got the good roads that are going up. And the reason you have the gap between them, because we're not required by statute to rate these roads every year. We try to get these every other year, but we have to do our rating of primary roads every year. And then go, the next one is the subdivision roads. As you can see,
Getting worse.
it's in poor shape. I mean, you can see you get 45 miles of gravel road or paved subdivision roads that are in poor condition. And I just want to say this, that Grand Blanc Township has 1/5 of all the subdivision roads throughout the county. So the entire county has about 520 miles of subdivision roads. We got almost 105 miles of it just in Grand Blanc Township. And a lot of these subdivisions in Grand Blanc Township that are probably over 40 years old, which means that they need to be reconstructed.
Life of the world is probably 20
Like
years, right?
20 years, that's what we designed it for,
They're
yes.
twice their age.
Okay, next, I think that's you, Eric. Okay, here are the roads, you gonna go ahead?
Yeah. So I'm gonna start out with the good stuff. What's going on in Grand Blanc Township, in and around Grand Blanc Township this year?
You need to be at the podium.
Yeah, go
We're
ahead.
live streaming this as well, I'm sorry.
Okay. So 2022 major roadway projects. The first one, Mr. Yancho asked about the Baldwin Road projects. So there's 3 phases of Baldwin Road. The first phase is under construction right now, and that goes from Holly Road west 900 feet. The whole intention of that is to, again, widen it out to 3 lanes, but also fix the intersection. The intersection currently, there's a bottleneck. When people go to turn left, they'll back up and none of the traffic can go through. So we're gonna fix that. And then phase 2 is the project you guys just voted on, and that'll go from the new Door Highway to 900 foot west of Holly Road. And that's gonna widen that roadway out from 2 lanes to 3 lanes. And then phase 3 goes from Gainey Drive to Ruby Drive. Same thing, it's gonna widen the roadway out from 2 lanes to 3 lanes. Of course, we have a restriction with the MDOT bridge over I-75, so we'll go back down to 2 lanes and then we'll widen back up to 3 lanes. So the beauty of the whole thing is there'll be a center left turn lane. So traffic trying to turn left will not stop the through traffic. We'll get a lot more capacity out through there.
And it will also allow the road to be an all-season road for semi-traffic.
Correct. Phase 3, the township worked with Michigan Economic Development, Michigan Department of Transportation Economic Development, and got funding that covered 100% of the construction for that project. So the township added on a small section to the east, which they'll have, the township through the DDA will have to pay for a portion of that, but again, the main segment is 100% covered through the grant that the township received. Porter Road, Grand Blanc Road to Hill Road, that's a local road. We do have some, when consumers came through and ran a pipeline through the county, we had a contract with consumers, and any road they're gonna use as a haul road that saw some deterioration, they had to pay to upgrade that roadway. We were only gonna do a microsurface on that roadway, but the cost to resurface it, compared to what the funds we had left over, it was a no-brainer for us. We're just gonna, It's just under 2 miles. We're just going to resurface that whole 2 miles. So that'll be a project that wasn't going to happen, and we were able to make it happen. Reed Road, Dort Highway to Grand Blanc city limits. We talked to, or Fred mentioned allocation funding. We'll talk about allocation funding a little bit. Again, this is another local roadway. The township is utilizing their allocation funding. The Funding Road Commission gives towards projects. They're matching at 50-50, and we're going to be able to resurface that section of Reed Road. Bella Vista Drive. The city has a short 1-block section on Bella Vista Drive that goes from Perry Road south, 1 block. Again, the township's going to utilize some of their funding to go ahead and resurface that roadway. The city's already resurfaced theirs 2 years ago, I believe, 2-3 years ago. So the township's going to finish off their section, and we'll have a nice roadway all the way to Perry.
But that's also a primary road, right? Not a subdivision road.
That is a local road.
Local. so-
Local road, yep.
So
Yep,
it's not a subdivision.
We'll use allocation funding for that one, so. South, or Door Highway. Mr. Yancey mentioned Door Highway. Door Highway, the section from Baldwin Road up to Pollock Road is complete with the exception of the top course. We left the top course off, and we're gonna try and top the whole thing from Baldwin up to Cook at the same time. The section from Pollock Road up to Cook Road is under construction right now. That's been dragging on a little bit. We'll talk about that in just a second. And then the section from Cook Road up into the interchange has been completed for a couple of years now. So the section from Pollock Road to Cook Road, the sticking point there is there's some very poor soil in there. We had to make sure that all that poor soil was taken care of before we could start building up. And then we're using some what are called mechanically stabilized earth walls, which require about 4,000 pounds per square foot bearing to sit on them. So we had to make sure this was right. That's the part that's taken so long. We excavated it out, the contractor put it back in, then we made the contractor go back and compact all of it. They had to get compaction. This took a little while for that to happen. Once we finally got compaction, they started on the wall, and we had flooding issues down through there. It's just one big swamp down through there where we're putting this. We were able to get the contractor to take care of that, start coming up with a wall. So the wall's pretty much up to where the wall needs to be. Contractor needs to have their fabricator who designed the wall come out and look at the wall because there's some tilting issue to it. It's not much, probably nothing that anybody would see, but our guys are out there with levels and they notice it. So we just want to make sure that the wall's done correctly according to manufacturer's specifications before we allow the contractor to move forward. The contractor has been moving forward on all the approaches to the section that's sitting down low. So we're getting a lot closer than we have been. We were originally anticipating beginning to middle of June. That might stretch a little bit depending on when the contractor's able to get back in. We just got a letter before I left the office tonight. I haven't had a chance to look at it, but so hopefully that's the letter from the contractor or from the fabricator that says we're all good to go. And if that's the case, we can get the contractor back in, and hopefully within 2 months we'll be done with that job. So that's what we're hoping, fingers crossed. So, and adjacent with that project, but a separate project, is the Trailway project. There is a Trailway project going from Baldwin Road all the way up to Cook Road. It'll run along the east side of the Dort Highway project that we're building right now, and that was actually anticipated during the design of Dort Highway, and we left space down through there for that project. The section from Baldwin up to Pollock Road is almost complete, and then the contractor it was set up as a 2-year project, and the contractor will be coming back in this year to complete the section from Pollock up to Cook once we're complete with the roadway work. McCandless Road, Saginaw Road to Vassar Road. That's a local roadway. Actually, that's a primary roadway. I'm sorry, it's a primary roadway. We switched it from a local to a primary in 2018. So our crews are planning to do a chip and fog seal on that this year. Baldwin Road from Gray Tracks to McWayne, which is even further west, we're going to do a chip and fog seal on that project. Holly Road from Ray Road to Baldwin Road. We're gonna do a chip and seal on that roadway and a fog seal. Those projects, this is meant to be preventative maintenance. The road's not in terrible condition. It's either gonna be a Phaser 4 or a 5. But what this will do is it'll seal that roadway up. It'll create a smoother roadway, and essentially it'll add 4 or 5 years to the life of the roadway before we have to get out and do anything else to it. So, in a lot of these roadways, that's what we have to do, is we have to try and limp them along because there just isn't the money to go through and reconstruct everything. So, but that's been a very good fix for us. Holly Road, Baldwin to I-70, southbound I-75 ramps. We're gonna go ahead and mill and resurface Holly Road from Baldwin Road up to southbound I-75. This winter was just absolutely terrible on that section of roadway. So we're hitting it just at the right time. We're gonna do an 1.5 inch milling of that roadway, and then we're gonna resurface it all. Look like a brand new roadway when we're done. Misty Meadows Drive, McCandless Road to the south end. This is an SAD project, Special Assessment District. They came to us last year, Township passed a special assessment for it. We were trying to get the job done last year. We had a contractor that wasn't really willing to cooperate, but they are gonna be out here very soon finishing that project up this spring, so. McQueen Road, Baldwin to Cook, it's a gravel roadway. It's a very heavily used gravel roadway. A lot of traffic goes down through there. We have a lot of trouble, and we end up spending a lot of time on maintenance on that roadway. Last year, we had a pilot project utilizing a enzyme called Permazyme, down through there. And what happened is we put limestone down and then we mixed the Permazyme in with it. And what it did is it more or less turned that roadway to almost a concrete-like surface. When we did this, I believe it was in July, we really didn't touch that roadway all fall. We didn't have to go out and regrade it, anything like that. There's some very minor potholing, and then it made it through the winter. And even into the spring, it held up absolutely fantastic until we actually had to go through and grade it out again. So that's the beauty of this Permazyme. The township has agreed to pay 50% of the Permazyme cost. We're on gravels where we are using Permazyme, and again, it makes a big difference on these roadways. 2022 drainage structures. We don't have the location set yet, but every year we partner with all the townships around the county, and we'll work with Scott, and he'll provide a list of locations where the drainage structures are in very poor condition in the pavement sections, in both subdivisions, local roads and primary roadways, and then we'll split the cost with the township on the local roadways. We'll pay 100% of the primaries, and we'll go through and repair those drainage structures. So once we get that list set, then that's typically a fall project for us. Hill Road, Door Highway to Saginaw Street. So this section right out here, we're gonna do a microsurface on it this year. Microsurface is something short of a overlay, but again, it's a preventative maintenance type of treatment, and it's meant to extend the life of the roadway. It seals everything up, keeps the water out, and if we can keep the water out, we can typically extend the life of the roadway. Saginaw Road from Hill to Maple, there's that little section right in between, in that triangle area. We're also gonna microsurface that. That's what the road commission is going to do this year, in conjunction with the township, in the township. Other projects that the township should be aware of. Maple Avenue, if you've driven north of here, you already know Maple Avenue is being resurfaced. That's being completed by the city of Burton. And then I-75, if you've driven down I-75, you'll see some work going on down there. That's going from 475 all the way down to Dixie Highway. And included in that will be the southbound ramps for Holly Road. So again, there's a lot of work to coordinate between different agencies this year in and around Grand Blanc Township. So those are this year's projects for us in the township. The major projects, there's still, like I say, there's still crews going out and doing culvert replacements and stuff like that throughout the county. Our maintenance crews and throughout the township. And that'll all continue. So next slide. So 23 and 24, I only put on the federal and state aid work. Typically, the local projects, we'll sit down with Scott, Dennis, and Jeff, and we'll in December-ish, January-ish, we'll sit down and talk about what the township wants to see done. The township receives all the reports on the bad roads. We receive enough ourselves, but the township knows exactly where the roads are good and where the roads are bad, which ones need help. And then we'll talk about their allocation money, how much they have. Again, it's the 50-50 match that they use on their local roadways. And we'll come up with a plan based on what the township wants to see done over the next year for the local roads. Primary roads, what we typically do with our primary roads, again, there's only so much money available, and we gotta see how we fared through the winter, how much work we're doing the previous year, how much we ran over, how much we're under. Once we pull everything out, we'll see how much money we have left over. This year, we had about $9 million left over to put towards primary roads. So you're seeing a really big primary road program throughout the county. Typical years, $4 to $6 million is what we can expect. So once we know how much money we have to spend, then we'll go through and we'll look at our primary roads. And it's typically set up based on condition, ADT, and population of the area and the average daily traffic using the roadway. The more traffic using the roadway, the more points that roadway will get. And that'll determine which roadways we'll do for primary roadways.
And Mr. Johnson, some of the timing is based on the funding. So, for example, I know people will look at this list and they'll say, Cook Road, Embry Road to Holly Road, that needs to be done right now.
Yep.
But unfortunately, the federal funds that we're going to use, or the road commission's going to use, it needs to be rebuilt completely. And those funds won't be available until 2024 for rebuilding it completely.
Correct, yeah. Roadways, sometimes the funding's a little screwed up, the way they allocate it. For instance, on a safety project, and you can't go out and fix something ahead of time when you know there's a safety issue. You don't get any points when you put an application for funding in for that way. Until somebody's severely hurt, until somebody's potentially killed, that's when we'll get a lot of points for a project. That's when they say yes, which is really backwards, but that's the way the system works, unfortunately. And it's the same way with these roadways. So I agree Cook Road's in terrible shape. But it wasn't until this year that we could get funding for Cook Road. The worse and worse the roadway gets, the more points it gets.
We couldn't get funding for till 2024, right? I mean,
Yep, so we got approved for funding this year, for 2024 funding to construct that roadway. Now, as far as the roadway surface goes, yes, it's in bad shape, but if we touch that roadway beyond maintenance work, if we touch that roadway between now and 2024, we risk losing that funding. Because now the roadway surface isn't as bad as it was. Do you really need the funding? There's other bad roadways. So again, it's sort of a screwed up system, but unfortunately it's the one we have to live with. So we don't, the funding doesn't come directly to us. It goes to the county, and it's just like this throughout the state, so it's not just our county. It goes to the county, and then we put in applications along with every other municipality in this county. Our roadways are compared to their roadways, and whoever's got the highest scoring applications will actually get the money, so. Okay, so for 2023, Grand Blanc Road, west of Potter Road to Dort Highway. So this is one job we're gonna try and do, widen out to 3 lanes, and we're gonna try and do it all in 1 year. Well, unfortunately, the money's not there. The county was shorted $200,000 a year for the last 4 years, $800,000, which really left them in a hole to do these expansion projects. We have enough money to do half of it. So we're gonna go from just west of Potter Road to Dort Highway, and we're gonna widen that all out to 3 lanes, okay? 20, Porter, yep.
said Potter.
I'm sorry, Porter.
It's spelled in there, but, yeah, Porter.
So, and then in 2024, we're going to do the section from Fenton to just west of Porter. Again, widen out to 3 lanes, okay? Saginaw Street, McCandless to Charing Cross Drive. We did get some safety funding because of accidents down through there for this section. This is a section, if you go south of Grand Blanc, you got 5 lanes, then at Charing Cross, it narrows down to 4 lanes, and goes 4 lanes all the way down to 75. We had enough accidents in there, we were able to get some safety funding. And the safety funding will allow us to widen it out and add a center left turn lane down through there. So it'll be a true 5-lane section all the way down to McCandless Road. Okay, we do have some drainage issues down through there. You'll notice there's some flooding. We're gonna take care of that with that project also, so. Okay, Hill Road, Fenton to Saginaw. We have some CMAQ money, congestion mitigation money. And we're gonna use that to improve the signals from Fenton Road all the way to Saginaw. Do signal upgrades. And at the same time, we're gonna optimize it to help traffic flow a little smoother down through there. Okay.
Eric, Mr. Johnson, Mr.
I am pleased to
Robertson.
hear that, because for as long as I can remember, there have been issues about why it takes so long to get back and forth on Hill Road. And I remember from my time on the county commission 20 years ago, we had issues with regard to who had jurisdiction over the lights on Saginaw Street and Hill versus those who had jurisdiction at Thornton Hill, and it seemed that they were never as synchronized or never as fluid as they should be. So are you going to do is resynchronization, if that's the right word?
Yep, that's a very good word for it, yep. And again, we're only gonna be able to do so much because we gotta play nicely with MDOT. And some of those signals are MDOT, so DORT and I-475 are MDOT signals.
You guys talk
So,
to each other, work
we-
these things out?
Yes, we're trying, so.
The other thing is probably slowing a few people down. If you talk to our police, they probably, having all green lights isn't always the best solution either.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
but isn't traffic flow this is a science and an art of, in terms of how these lights are supposed to be coordinated, am I correct?
Yes, it is. There's a lot of calculation that goes into those.
Thank you.
So, 2024, Saginaw Street, big project. Saginaw Street from I-75 up to McCandless. We're gonna resurface that. So, the roadways, as Fred mentioned, the rating system, it's a Pacer 5 right now. It's not a bad road, but it's not a great road. But they've got some funding available for these mid-range roadways, and that one qualifies. So, we ended up getting that funding, and we're gonna be able to resurface that, almost 3 miles of roadway down through there, so. Cook Road, Embry to Holly, we already talked about that project. It's a total reconstruction. So roadway's sort of narrow right now, shoulders aren't all that wide, and then the ditches in some areas are relatively deep. We're gonna go through and fix all that. So widen it out, and then we do have accident issues at the curves down towards the east end. So we're gonna upgrade those curves and put the correct geometrics on them to hopefully alleviate those, so. Grand Blanc Road, we talked about, and then Perry Road Trailway. So another section of Iron Bell Trail. Atlas Township's been working on their portion, so they've got a section of trail that runs up to Atlas right now, Village of Atlas. This year, they're gonna be widening out the sidewalks through the Village of Atlas. And then next year, they're gonna be building a section from Mancour Drive, which is more or less right around where Vassar Road goes north. So from Mancour Drive all the way to Atlas, so we'll be putting a trailway in there. So in 2024 is when Grand Blanc Township comes to the table. That section goes from Whitetail Drive, where the sidewalks end, coming just past the middle school, and it runs to Mancour Drive and connects into that Iron Bell Trailway. So, and then you'll have Iron Bell Trailway going all the way across.
Actually,
And starting to go north, so.
we actually received permission from the school district to have a trailhead right there at the East Middle School as well.
Yes. So it'll be nice, so. Those are the projects, again, as we get over the next 2 years, of course, during the winter, we'll finalize the local and the primary road projects and move forward with them, so. Next slide. So this is the fun one, funding. Primary roads. So Grand Blanc Township's fortunate. They have a lot of primary roads in Grand Blanc Township. A lot more primary roads than the section line local roadways. Genesee County Road Commission pays 100% of the cost for primary roadways. Engineering, construction, maintenance on primary roadways. We take care of those. Local section line roads. This is where we have allocation money that we put aside for the townships to utilize. So, and part of that deal is so for Grand Blanc Township, we have $188,000 we set aside, and the township matches that 50%. So if we spend $188,000 on the township section line roadways, the township spends $188,000. We're able to do a decent amount of work with that. So that's how the allocation works. And those are for the local section line roadways. We also put a new rule in there that if the township section line roadways were 70% or higher, Payzer 5 rating or higher, fair or better, which Grand Blanc Townships are, then Grand Blanc Township could utilize those allocation funds on other roadways such as commercial roadways and things like that. So that's new. That's something we need to talk about the township and see what they want to do, because again, Grand Blanc Township has local roadways, section line roadways that are in pretty good shape, but there are some other needs in the township, so. So yeah, again, in 2008, before 2018, $61,890 per year. When Mr. Pavandi became manager, he was able to almost triple that, up to $188,000 per year, so.
I just wanted to point that out, that, that number's kind of small on the screen, but it went to us as a township board, it went from 61,000 that, so basically 120,000 that we could have on local section line roads, and now, it went up, with Mr. Pavandi's help, it went up to 188,000, so we're adding our 188. So that's a pretty big jump from 60,000, and we appreciate it. I know some townships complain that that's an awful lot of money they got to try and match, but to us, it's like, hey, if we're going to put money towards roads, let's get this stuff done. So we're very pleased with that ability to put that much towards roads, and I think it also shows why we're at the 70% level on the primary roads. Now, subdivision roads are another story, and we'll get to those here.
Yeah. One more thing we're talking about, that it hasn't been decided on yet, and I hate to bring it up, but the question was asked today, is in Grand Blanc Township with Myers Elementary isn't the only school in a subdivision. There are other schools and subdivisions in the county, and all of them have the same issue. We have one school in a subdivision where there's only like 14 houses in the subdivision. The school uses the roadway, and the roadway's just falling apart, and 14 houses can't afford to do much to that roadway. So one of the things we are looking at is possibly bending the rules a little bit more for allocation, and allowing the townships to utilize their allocation funds on the specific streets only in a subdivision where the school buses travel. So as we have a chance to analyze that and see what does this mean financially, we'll get back with you guys on that, and hopefully we'll have good news for you. So
Everybody's going to want a school in their neighborhood now.
yeah, unfortunately. So, but again, if you have a school in, my kids went to Myers too, and I know exactly how bad that is in there. So, local subdivision roads. So as Mr. Vani mentioned, we're only allowed to spend so much of our Act 51 funds on local roadways. We are limited, just like bridges. We can spend, what can we spend on bridges? 50% of our funds, and then the township has to figure out how the rule says we can spend up to 50% of our funds on a local bridge, and then the other 50% has to come from another means. And typically that other means the township. But subdivisions are the same way. We can only spend so much money on subdivision streets. And there's only so much money to go around. The majority of our money is spent on higher traffic roadways. We have to make sure those are in good shape, because if those go, then we're in a world of hurt. Unfortunately, the local subdivisions get pushed off and put in another category. So for subdivisions, if you look at how much it's gonna cost to do a subdivision, that total pot, the road commission has said, we'll fund 100% of the design for that road, or of that subdivision. We'll fund 100% of the construction engineering for that road commission. The actual construction costs, and that's typically like it says, anywhere from 20 to 25% of the overall construction cost. The other 75 to 80% has to come from someplace else, which is typically the townships. Now, how the townships get the funding, that's up to the townships. But I can tell you the majority of the townships in this county put it out for SAD, which is a special assessment district for the properties within that subdivision. So again, that's up to you guys how you do that, but that's a process. The special assessment district, the way we run things is we want a single point of contact through the township, and that single point of contact for Grand Blanc Township has been Mr. Sears. So Mr. Sears hears that there's issues with subdivisions, he'll call us, and we'll have one of our design engineers go ahead and throw together a quick and dirty estimate on how much it's gonna cost to do the work in that subdivision. Sometimes it's a total reconstruction, sometimes it's just a resurfacing. The one thing I can tell you, the earlier you get to the streets, the earlier you do some sort of maintenance, such as Ottawa Hills, could just be a resurfacing. That'll push that street along for another 15 years. The earlier you can do that type of work, it's going to be a lot less expensive to the property owners if you go through the SAD process. If you have to totally reconstruct the roadway, now we're talking a little bit more money. So we try not to let them get that bad before something's done, but unfortunately, you guys have a lot of subdivisions.
There's a wide variety in terms of subdivisions on cost, right? On repaving or rebuilding the roads.
Yep.
So I was speaking with a developer, I don't know, within the last few years, and he said, this individual bought a subdivision that wasn't completed. And he said, before somebody even moves into a house in the subdivision or builds a house, I have $80,000 into that lot, just with the road being put in and the utilities being put to that lot. But that street is probably a majority of the cost, I would guess. But anyways, so we have some streets that have frontage of 100 feet. We have some that might be 50 feet, and that's all road frontage. So we have some subdivisions that have come to us. They we're trying to get the petition passed, and it was $20-some thousand per lot owner, because maybe they have a lot of frontage with each lot. We have other subdivisions where maybe it's smaller lots, and so it would be maybe $8,000 per lot, and maybe the road doesn't need to be rebuilt. And so, the tough part for a resident, I know, it's why do we have to pay this out of a special assessment instead of just the county or the township? And, part of it goes into it, it's that when those roads were built, they're all different costs, and how do we equalize that amongst taxpayers? How do I pay for somebody who has, 200 feet of frontage on a road versus somebody that has, 50 feet? But the special assessment district, I think, is pretty universal, like you said, in Genesee County. I don't know, maybe there's some counties that townships can't afford to pay their roads, pave all the subdivision streets. But being that we're an older township, we have a lot of older subdivisions, and unfortunately, the concrete streets that were put in at the time were lovely to have concrete roads, but now that they need to be fixed, all that concrete has to be torn out, costs extra to have that torn out rather than having asphalt torn out. So there's a lot of cost to it, but
Yeah, and it depends on the road that was there to begin with, like you said, the material of the roadway. Unfortunately, up to a certain point, I mean, the road commission requires that all roads be built to a certain standard right now. So that we know what's out there. We know what's out there is gonna last. There was a time when you could put a roadway in, there's no oversight, anything like that, and we might only have 2 inches, 3 inches of asphalt out there. And again, those are just gonna fall apart quick, and there's absolutely, they're not
no
gonna last long.
substructure to it at all, just mud.
Especially with construction vehicles on them. So now we make sure people are building stuff correctly. The townships, yeah, most of them went to SADs. The SADs are set up different, based on different townships. The majority of them set them up based on lots, not necessarily frontage, but it's up to the township to determine how they want to do that, how they want to fairly do that. Flint Township, they have a local road millage. So Flint Township actually pays a portion of the SAD through the local road millage to decrease the impact on the residents. Unfortunately, everybody's paying into it, but the actual tax amount that goes on your tax bill is a lot less. So there's options. There are a lot of options out there.
So how is the pothole patching? I know, many people during the winter, I don't think they quite understand that the cold patch is something totally different than
Yeah.
asphalt. And
Yeah.
so when you put it on during the middle of winter, it's gonna probably just pop right out, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, the technology for patching really hasn't come that far over the last 50 years. Once the asphalt plant shuts down, which is typically the beginning of December, until it opens up, which is typically the beginning of May, we have to use, we have a couple different materials. Our road commission has invested to try and get a little bit better material. Most places use cold patch. You put the cold patch in, it'll make it smooth for a little bit until it rains again, and then it'll start spitting it out, chewing it up and pushing it out. Our road commission invested in I can't even think of the name of the. It's a bagella. It's like a mini asphalt plant, but we use millings that we've milled up from projects the summer before. We put them back in, we heat it all up, we add a little bit of bituminous material in there, and it's actually a better material. It's not as good as hot mix material, but it's a whole lot better than cold patch. And we try and utilize that where we can. The other thing we're doing is on higher ADT roadways, there's a more expensive patching material. And for the higher ADT roadways, where we don't trust the material we're putting into the potholes, we use this more expensive stuff. But again, it's a lot more expensive, so we use it where we have a lot more traffic, and that's it. So, but now the asphalt plants are open. We'll start throwing hot mix asphalt back in those holes. With our process, though, again, you start. Of course, we have to take care of MDOT first. We have a contract with MDOT that says you take care of our roadways first and foremost on everything from maintenance, snow plowing, everything. But then we'll move to primary roadways, because again, those are the heaviest traveled roadways. And then we'll go down to the local section line roadways. Unfortunately, the subdivisions are the last ones, and those are the ones that our crews are finally having time to move into right now. It was a really bad winter on the roads. The winter was really hard, so it's taken a lot longer to get into the subdivisions than normal, but we're now seeing our crews start to come into the subdivisions to take care of issues.
What would you say to residents that think that the township should fight the county for more money for road funding because their road isn't getting paved quicker?
Which county? The road commission or the Genesee County?
Road commission.
Well, again, we're just like you guys. Our pot's only so big. And you can fight all you want, but if you take more money for road funding, then your bridges are gonna suffer, your culverts are gonna suffer. Your ditching, you're not gonna get the ditching like you do now. So something's gotta give, because there's only so much money available.
So the allocation, I guess, the question is, which townships get which money, and not that we need to go through the whole formula, but just so people understand, there is a formula that we use that's based on lane miles, whole bunch of different.
It's based on two primary things, mileage and population. And fortunately, Blanc Township has a lot of mileage, and it's got a lot of population. So Blanc Township gets a decent chunk of,
65% mileage, 35% population.
yeah.
And nobody's property taxes go towards the roads. I know one
Yeah,
of the
if-
misconceptions is I pay high property taxes in this county, my roads should get fixed. Well,
Yep. Huge misconception. I dare anybody to go home and look at their tax bill, their property tax bill, and find a line item that says roadway, because it won't be there. Not unless there's a millage, like Flint Township has a millage. So none of the money you pay to the townships with your taxes go towards roadways.
or county.
Or county, yeah. Our funding primarily comes from gas tax revenue and car registration. There's a few other little things that are thrown in there that make up our Act 51 funds, but those are the two biggest contributors to what we get.
All right. Does anybody have any, we also have Mr. Sears here. One of the things we put in the packet, actually, I don't think the gentleman saw our packet, but we actually have, for residents, we have available a step-by-step brochure that outlines if they want to do a special assessment district, what they do. And in a minute, we'll ask Mr. Sears to kind of, maybe not go through all the steps, but we can kind of highlight some of them, if you care to stick around. But does anybody have any questions? Mr. Clerk Robertson?
Yeah, just a couple of questions. I'm curious about. I know in the last few years that I was in Lansing, we were making specific appropriations for bridges and culverts based upon a list prepared by the county road commission at the time that were of high priority in that. Obviously, I haven't followed it that closely since I've been away from it for a few years. But are there any specific dollar? Lansing's been kind of flush with cash, more so than they ever imagined recently. Have they been making any specific allocations for any specific priority projects, or on the bridges and culverts issue particularly? I know that was a priority in the last 2 years that I was there. I presume that it continues to be.
So I don't know how many of you guys have heard about bridge bundling. Bridge bundling has been sort of a hot topic. And what it is the state is putting money towards bridges. In this last year, it was 88 million. 88 million. They put, not last year, a couple years ago, 88 million. Of that funded like 26 different bridges, and unfortunately Genesee County didn't get any of that, okay? So now all this new money is flooding in from the federal government, and they were able to allocate 300, I can't, don't quote me on the exact number, but a larger number. Of that, Genesee County ended up getting 2 bridges funded. One for a removal. We have a bridge that's been closed, Lily Road in Argentine Township, and it's a local bridge. And once a bridge is closed, unfortunately, if it's on a local road and gravel road, there's pretty much slim to no chance of ever getting any funding to do that bridge. This was great because the state said, we're going to look at all bridges that are closed. So our bridge was picked, and we said, this bridge has been closed for a long enough period that it really doesn't make sense for us to reconstruct it. So we're just going to remove the bridge. So the state's paying to have that bridge totally removed. So we go from 121 bridges down to 120 bridges. The second bridge that was picked will be up in Vienna Township. And again, we got 2 bridges picked. And that is on Webster Road over the Pine Run. That's a local bridge. We were given our choice on that one. It's a local bridge, which again, doesn't stand much of a chance on getting funded. And local bridges are 50-50 participation with the township. So if something were to happen to that bridge, that's a main route going into Saginaw County, we'd have to do something with it. But again, it'd be very, very hard pill to swallow for the township to have to pay $500,000 to replace that bridge. So,
Mr. Fike?
Yeah, yes, I just wanted to make a couple of quick points. First, Fred, And Eric, thank you for what you've done for Grand Blanc Township. We appreciate your hard work. Couple of comments, though. First of all, regarding the Dordt Highway extension, I agree with Mr. Yancho that this project has taken way too long. I remember in a previous life doing a stories on that over 20 years ago. And the fact that it's still not done and there's still more excuses and it's going to be delayed again and delayed and delayed and delayed is, I don't get it. But we look forward to the day when we all can go over that road and go right to Baldwin Road like we're supposed to. I remember the environmental, study was that thick on this thing. It's just taken too long. So I'm just venting here. The other thing is regarding the two different roadways that you have, primary and local. I get all the attention to that, but it seems like when we love all those projects that you've mentioned, we need them all yesterday, but it seems like there's a priority is not on the subdivisions. And you can hear from the people here and from the people in the township, we got a problem and we need to help fix it and we need to streamline the process. We don't want to take it as long as the Dordt Highway extension is taken. We want, if the residents have just terrible roads in their subdivision, they need to fairly quickly take a vote, get her done, and do the assessment. They're frustrated, and it's not just one subdivision. There's many throughout Grand Blanc Township. What are you doing to help streamline this to make it quicker so that we can get these roads paved?
Well, the process, I'm not going to say it's streamlined, but because we're government and unfortunately we move at the pace of government, I hate to say it, but typically, if you come to us with a special assessment that's been approved, a project that has an approved special assessment, the summer before, we'll have it under construction the next spring.
It'll be done in a year?
It'll be done in a year, yeah. And we've been very successful at that over the last few years. Getting the estimates, the estimates typically takes a little bit longer because unfortunately we have to deal with the whole county and the subdivisions in the whole county aren't in that great a shape. So everybody wants an estimate, so we do the estimates as they come in. At the same time, we're trying to get all this other work done. So those can take a little bit longer, but the only thing I can say is just keep pestering us, and Jeff does a pretty good job at that, saying, letting us know, hey, I asked for this, can you guys get that to me? So, but like I said, it's a year commitment. We've been fortunate that I'm setting enough money aside in my engineering budget to do about $5 million of work a year for subdivisions, and that's about what we're running right now. It's about $5 million of work of subdivision work. So
Part of the dilemma, Mr. Flynn, too, if I may, Mr. Johnson, is that we have a lot, and Jeff can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this is the case. We get a lot of people who want an estimate on their subdivision. We do the estimate, and then we never hear anything more.
Yeah.
Now, you can imagine if you multiply that by 31 municipalities or whatever number there are that you're working with, that have everybody asking for estimates, and then they don't do anything. I mean, we have people call here, want an estimate, we put in submit the request. We get, it may take, in the past, during the COVID thing, it took probably a year or more sometimes to get those estimates. But then nothing happens with them. So you have other subdivisions who want that estimate and they're ready to go, but we don't know who those people are. When they request it, we submit it, but we don't know whether somebody's gonna take it. I know Miss Hugo, for example, their subdivision had requested several. Miss Hugo requested one, and when she got it back, she went to work getting the signatures. So while everybody's requesting estimates, doesn't mean they're gonna move forward with it, but it bogs down the road commission because they're having to do all these estimates for people that may never even move forward with a special assessment district. So while some people may say, hey, I know one person said that Mr. Sears hadn't requested one, and he had. I don't know who they spoke to at the road commission, but they were saying that he hadn't requested one, and one had been requested. But the bottom line is, You know, when you're estimating the cost on building a road, it's more than just saying how much is the cost of asphalt and how much roadway is there. They have to look at the sewers. Hey, do we need to replace the gutters? You know, I've got a street in my subdivision that probably, in an older section of it, the asphalt, to my knowledge, probably was put over top of dirt. There's no substructure to it. So when they go to replace that road, it's a whole different cost than somebody who's just basically milling off the top inch or what have you. So all those factors go into making that estimate, which takes some time. But we also want to make sure when we give an estimate to somebody like Miss Hugo that's going to their neighbors, say, hey, it's going to cost $8,000 over 15 years. We want to make sure that number's fairly close, not just some number we pull out of the air, because people are going to be relying on that number to determine whether or not they're going to be in favor of paving their street.
Yeah.
So I understand the dilemma. At first, you know, a few years ago when I was newer, it'd be like, why are they taking so long? They should have these things turned around in a month. But I understand it. It takes some time to get accurate numbers, and that's what we need. So.
Just one other more point. You know, I just think that there could be a feeling out there from people in the subs saying, you know, you're building all these great primary roads for the big trucks and all this stuff, but what about me? What about my road? You know, who's helping our residents? And with all this federal and state ARPA money and all this, it's a good time for money. You know, we need to be making the residents a priority in this whole process and not having them third on the list of getting all the funds.
Did the road commission receive any ARPA money?
No, we didn't receive any.
Okay.
So we are getting a little bit of ARPA money for staff through the county. But that's it. We didn't receive any ARPA money at the road.
The other thing that's with regard to funding, one of the things that I've learned also in my position, Mr. Fike, is that there's different pots of funding, just like we have money. We have money for our water and sewer. That money cannot be used for police. The fire millage can't be used for, remodeling. You can only use certain funds for certain things. So, for example, the Dort Highway Extension money, that actually wasn't road money. Mr. Robertson could tell you from his time in the legislature, actually was economic development money that was received specifically for that project.
Correct.
The same with Baldwin Road. That money was specifically allocated for that project. The grant was specifically because we were bringing in new businesses that qualified for funding. So it'd be great if we could say, hey, why don't we use that money instead of widening Baldwin Road to pave our subdivisions? We'd probably do it in a heartbeat. And however, those money come from different pots and have to be used for different things. And unfortunately, there's no money really that we could pull off to use for subdivision streets that I'm familiar with.
Correct. Yep, you're 100% correct.
And one quick question. Are there underlying costs that make up the amount that you determine when you talk to Mr. Sears that could be saved? I mean, one thing that drove me crazy was environmental assessments, environmental impact studies. What can we learn about an environmental impact that we don't already know about Michigan, because we've been living in the same place, and it used to be before Father Marquette came, it was a swamp. Okay, and so I mentioned that just as an illustration. But are there ways that we could reduce the costs of what we of the overall cost for a special assessment?
So environmental.
I use that as an illustration.
Environmental stuff doesn't necessarily apply to the subdivisions or special assessments. It's more for anytime there's federal or state funding involved on a specific roadway. And as Scott can probably attest, it's getting worse and worse. We're actually starting jobs 6 months earlier than we used to start them because it's taken that much longer to get through the environmental review process. So, but for subdivisions, that's the whole reason we can push one out in a year, once we have approval to go on it, is because we can waive that, so.
I want to reserve some time too for Mr. Sears to run through the special assessment process too, so. Ms. Hugo?
I just wanted to comment real quick. I live in Granville Estates, and my husband and I actually took the lead. But to the residents, we spearheaded, getting the special assessment district process going. Time consuming, yes. worth it? Definitely. Like he said, within a year, our road was repaved. If we had a problem with it, Director Sears, I would contact him. He would then contact the county. Sorry about all the phone calls. As simple as, okay, I don't think that there's enough gravel going up our driveway to meet the cement. Next thing I know, it's done. It is expensive, but it is definitely worth it. It will increase the value of your home, and the township, to the residents of township and the road commission were really great to work with, so thank you both.
Anything else for Mr. Vivanti, Mr. Lehman, anything for the two of them? Okay, I want to ask Director Sears to just kind of run through our special assessment process. It'll be brief, you guys.
Should only be another hour or two.
So I don't know, you might just highlight it, I don't know.
Yeah, we'll go through it very quickly.
We have this available, is it on our website?
This is available on our website, and we're updating that now, the website. Also, there's a whole site under the Public Works that is dedicated to special assessment districts. Some of it's already been discussed by Eric and Fred. The first part of a special assessment district is to talk to me. To talk to me about what is going on in your road, give me some information so I can go out and take a look at it, help the road commission establish what we're going to do in the subdivision, then I'll request an estimate from the road commission. The estimates, like everybody said, depending on how busy the road commission is, it can take a few weeks up to a few months. There's 31 other municipalities that they're working for. So we have to be very patient, and we try to be very patient. But I am very good at pestering them also. So we get that done fairly quickly. After the estimate's received by me, or after I receive the estimate, I will hand that out to whoever requested it, whatever residents in the subdivision requested it. Generally, it's up to them if they're going to pursue a petition or not. It's up to the residents to circulate the petition to get the signatures. The township is not going to do that. So you have to get the support from your neighbors to move ahead. In the past, and currently, we have scheduled meetings with neighborhoods. Myself and the road commission attend. We discuss this process, and we discuss the estimate. We discuss what to expect during the construction project. And, that's a good time to have the petition laying out on the table for people to come and sign if they want to. Usually, sometimes it's a contentious meeting. Sometimes people are very happy to be there and are supportive. It just depends on the crowd that you get that night. But we do that for people who have questions. The petitions are circulated, like I said, by the residents. And what we are looking for is for homeowners that represent more than 51% ownership of the total lineal footage along the roadways to sign the petition. So we add up all the lineal footage or frontage along the roads, and those owning more than 51% have to sign the petition. If on the deed to a home, there two names appear, a husband and a wife, both have to sign the petition in order to count. Some people don't necessarily understand that. If both names aren't there, then we can't count that signature as valid. Once 51% is received, they'll give us the petition. Our township clerk will go through and validate all the signatures through our voting files, and our assessing department will go through and validate that 51% has actually been received. And then that petition will come to the township board. The township board will vote to proceed with the project. Generally, you do, because we want these road projects to happen. And then the road commission can proceed with designing the project. Design and engineering, depending on the project size, can take up to 6 months to be completed. Once that is done, the road commission will go out for bid on the project. They have pre-qualified contractors. They have bidding sites that they go out to. It's not just a select group of people. They have public bidding that they have to do. So once those bids are received, if the bids are the lowest bid, and it's not always the lowest bid that is accepted, The contractor has to be qualified, like I said, but if the project cost is more than 10% over the engineer's estimate, that's going to come back to the township board, and you're going to vote to either proceed or not proceed. Now, if we vote to not proceed, we are liable by their rules for the engineering and design, or the design cost. So, you know, most of the time, we want to keep going if we can. If there's a large objection, though, which has happened, then the project can be turned down at that time. Once it's, like they said, once it's voted on by the board to proceed, then they'll begin the process of signing contracts and getting going on it. Usually, you know, if somebody comes to me right now with a completed petition, then I would be comfortable saying that we can probably do construction in 2023. But if it's this fall, it's probably not going to happen, just because of the amount of time that it takes to design the projects. We don't want to go out for bid on these projects in the summertime. We don't even want to go out for bid on them in the springtime, because we're not going to get favorable pricing. It's going to come back more expensive. We've had projects where we went out for bid again because it has come back way over. I think Ms. Hugo's subdivision was that way. Came back way over the estimate. It just wasn't feasible. So we waited, we went back out for bid, and we got better pricing for the next year. I have here so far the estimates that we have requested and we're waiting on from the road commission, and this is good information. So if you hear your subdivision, then you know the process has already started, and you know, contact me. I can give you those neighbors' names. They're going to need help circulating petition. It takes an army of people, not just one person. Sun Valley is a big one. We've requested that estimate. I know the road commission's working on it right now. Grove Avenue is a dirt road. We've had people request to have that paved. Chatham is one that we've requested recently. Kings Point and Creekside Village are both newer estimates that we've requested. Estimates that I have, and we're working on the petitions right now, is Wishing Well. That is a big, big project. It's a very expensive project. So we're printing those petitions right now, and hopefully we filled the potholes too soon. We should have left them for a couple more months so that people have more motivation. But those are being printed now. Those will go out to residents hopefully by the end of this week, and that petition drive can get started. And then Del Rio also, which is off of Cook Road, is another one that I'm working on. That one's kind of unique because most of that subdivision is in Mundy Township. So I have to work with Mundy Township to work on the petition process. Active petitions right now, Concord Green and Orchard Haven are both circulating petitions. Concord Green for a resurface and Orchard Haven for reconstruction. So, and then that's it. That's all we have out right now. So there's a lot of interest right now, but like Scott had mentioned before, a lot of times residents will get these costs and they won't go any further. They don't want to circulate the petitions because, you know, it costs a lot of money. I've seen Del Rio as an example. That assessment is over $20,000 a parcel. So, I mean, they're probably not going to get the support they need to move forward. Wishing Well is almost $12,000 a parcel.
So we've been able to work with the road commission and with their bonding entity to stretch this out in some cases to 15-year repayment,
Correct.
and which makes it a little bit more palatable.
Yeah, some of them we are doing 15 years, but we do have to put somewhat of a limit on that because it's not a favorable way for the bond attorneys to go when we're seeking these bonds. So, but the larger ones we certainly can go up for 15.
Mr. Sears, can you comment briefly on our crack seal program, what we do for newly paved subdivisions?
Right, for 10 years after, or the life of the assessment, I shouldn't say 10 years because now we have 15-year assessments. For life of the assessment, the township actually crack seals the new roads. So I know like in Ottawa Hills, it was repaved, a gentleman spoke about that earlier, and we crack sealed that for the life of the assessment, which is 10 years. We haven't done that recently because the assessment's over there now. Mm-hmm. But I have talked to their HOA people recently about, they're looking at crack sealing it themselves. They've mentioned possibly resurfacing, but they didn't think they had the support for that quite yet. Mm-hmm. But it's probably a good idea to look at that within the next few years.
Right. Okay. Anybody else have any questions for Mr. Sears? Mr. Avery, any thoughts? I know you're probably getting phone calls on potholes as well.
Yeah, I appreciate this clarity because
Okay.
that's a messaging that needs to be heard.
Okay. All right.
Can I ask for one clarification? Does the
Sure.
petition state, if you're gonna take a petition out, will it tell the homeowner, this is how much you'll be assessed over this many years, and is there a maximum to it, so that a homeowner says, yeah, I can afford $1,000 a year, but then you're gonna turn around and say the project costs more?
So what we do is the estimate comes back, that petition goes out, what have you. If the actual project cost is, 10% over, did we say, Mr. Sears? If it's 10% over, typically, when it's 10% over, when we have the second hearing, we hear about it from the residents that come and tell us that, I signed this petition, but you know what? I want my name taken. I want a no vote now. And so the board hears that, and if we still have 51% when it's all said and done, we move forward, because if 51% of the residents in that neighborhood want it paved, who are we not to go with the majority? So, the other thing that we have to consider is that when we have a subdivision that the streets are extremely poor, it really reflects on the whole township. Even though it may be on another side of the township or what have you, it's still Blanc Township, and it brings the home values down, because when the streets start to fall apart, it gives people kind of the impression that anything goes, and so now they start not taking care of their house, their yard. You can't tell the difference to where the curb is, because it goes right from yard to street, and it just really starts to be unkept. And so it's in all of our best interest to try and work to find a way to get the subdivision streets paved, even for those subdivisions we don't live in. And I think our township board really is concerned about, you heard some of the questions. We want to streamline the process. We want to make it much more available. People know what projects are out there, how to go about it. Unfortunately, we don't pay for it. The county doesn't pay for it. State doesn't. The folks that live in that subdivision, or the people building the subdivision, have to pay for the roads that are in there. The county will take them over, when a subdivision's built, but they receive no funding, for paving the street again. So we want to see them paved, so we'll be glad to work with you to try and do whatever we can. And I think the list, Mr. Sears, that you provided is very helpful. If we can publish that somewhere, I think would be helpful too, because there may be residents that aren't aware of the petition that would be glad to help circulate it in some cases, maybe. I'm going to allow a question here, sir. Go ahead.
Does anybody look at the quality of these repairs? I'll give you an example. On our road, I've lived there about 5 years, and I would guarantee you that they have been out there to repair the road on Territorial at least 10 times.
Yeah.
And
Well,
the quality is
Yeah. Well,
not good.
Territorial was paved quite a while ago, right?
Yes, it was. However, we've had flooding issues.
Right.
Which were caused by the sewers not working.
Mm-hmm.
And now they want to put
Road.
it on the backs
Yeah.
of the people in the subdivision to repair the roads that sewers weren't maintained.
Yep.
Poor workmanship on the pothole repair.
Yep.
And now we get to pay for it.
Eric or Fred, anything on quality? I know that when the road is paved, you make sure that, the contract is fulfilled, the quality of the asphalt, the thickness of it, you're out there measuring it, and that's one of the reasons why townships don't do it, because we don't have the staff for making sure those quality standards are met.
That's what the 25% cost comes from. That's what we pay for engineering inspection, to make sure all the construction projects are
Right.
built according to the specifications.
Yeah.
As far as the quality goes of the maintenance work, we're just trying to do what we can to get that roadway by until something comes free that we can do more to that street. So, but right now, the majority of what we can do is potholes.
Okay.
And unfortunately, we can do that. There's some counties that have to go up and grind up roads. They're in a bag of gravel. They're getting so bad.
Yeah.
We haven't had to do that yet, but.
Well, there's a cost to doing that too, from what I understand, so. Sure, and then we need to move on. Yes,
The presentation said over 50% of the roads are for.
subdivision streets.
Right, for the subdivisions, okay. Could the township do an assessment township-wide that says we're gonna go into all the subdivisions on a rated basis, and fix the roads in the whole township? Like you said, everybody's property is being impacted in the whole township. Could you just do one assessment for the whole township and everybody votes on it and just put it out for vote?
We could have a millage for the roads. We could. There's subdivisions that have already been paved, and they probably would not be in favor of it, I would guess.
Could you factor their
There's,
assessment
yeah,
into the millage?
there's some subdivisions that actually the streets are private, that their streets would not be eligible to be paved, but I believe they probably would have to pay, but I'm not sure about that, but, so there would be some things we'd have to look at, but it is a possibility if, residents came to us and said, hey, we want an assessment for roads. Mr. Lemata probably can, if some of you want to ask him sometime, he could tell you. I'm not sure we want to go all through it, but you were with another township that they actually set up a schedule for which streets would be paved when, and everybody paid into the millage, and they had a plan for the next 10 years of which subdivision would be paved, right, Mr. Lemata?
Yeah, it was a lengthy process, but it's possible to put a road millage question before the voters. And the previous township that I was with, it was passed by over 70%, but it also involved months of meetings, and most people want to know, when is my specific road going to be fixed? And so we developed a plan, because a lot of them weren't necessarily that you had the worst road, but if there was going to be water and sewer improvements that are going to go through that subdivision, then that one was going to wait for 5 years, because we had a plan for upgrading, sewer. So it was a lengthy process. We got it through, and with the idea that by the time that the millage ended, that everybody would still, with a maintenance plan through the millage funds, have a PASER rating of 6 or better. But it's not an easy process, and it's not, you have to have tremendous support in the community to do it. And I mean, if you think that people would be willing to consider an additional millage for subdivision streets across the township, it's something that the board can look at on putting that on a ballot measure. But there will be some pushback on it, and because I've been through it, and a lot of the pushback is, like we said, we have had a program where we've created special assessment districts. A lot of folks are in the process of paying or just finished paying a special assessment district, and you ask them to vote for a millage to do subdivision roads, they're going to vote no.
Okay. We'll go with one more question, and then we're going to move on. Ms. Giancho?
Yes, we've heard a lot about how the townships are taken care of by the road commission and so on, but we haven't heard the word city used. Grand Blanc City has some pretty decent roads. What's the difference?
Well, right now, basically townships in Michigan, the road funding is handled by the road commissions at the county level. Cities actually receive their own funding from the state and federal government. So they maintain their own roads. So there's some pluses and minuses to being a city, obviously. Years ago, there was a effort to look at merging both. In fact, there was on the ballot to merge the city and the township together. There's some things tax-wise that people don't like with being a city, in that right now here in the township, the only way that your taxes can be raised are with a vote of the public. City council, guess what? Can raise your taxes within certain levels. But Mr. Lehman?
The other thing with cities is the millage amounts. If you take a look at the city of Grand Blanc, there's 6 more mills. So you could have the exact same house you're in right now, it's the exact same value, you're going to pay 6 mills more. If you look at what 6 mills would do for Grand Blanc Township, that would equate to roughly $8 million increase in our general fund. So if you give us another $8 million, I guarantee you we can fix some subdivision roads, but it comes at a cost. 6 mills, you add 6 more mills to what you're already paying, it's going to be painful. And, that's one of the
things, if you live in a city, they own those roads, you're going to see them have additional millage funds typically, and they can spend money on roads, and they get Act 51 funding. Townships don't. And, even if we go for a road millage and we get the additional funds and we start to fix roads, just remember, the county still owns the roads. The township doesn't own the roads. We're raising funds to fix roads that we don't own.
Okay. Well, thank you, gentlemen. We appreciate you coming this evening and meeting with our residents and with our board and talking about roads. And thank you, Mr. Sears, Mr. Avery. So for filling potholes, you have a phone number and an email address on your website that we encourage people to go to? And they probably have.
Cell phone number, whatever.
Call you at home, Mr. Vivandi?
I think that's my number.
Yeah, okay. All right. Anything else? Call the Road Commission office, and we appreciate you being here. Okay. Thank you.
We're on to